Have you ever played Dark Souls and wished you had guns instead of swords? Do I have the game for you? Hi, I am Chris, and welcome to Zinematic Gaming, where we regularly shed a light on interesting new single-player RPGs and discuss lore of established universes. Subscribe if you enjoy the video. Today we will be talking about Witchfire, developed by the Astronauts. You may know them from The Vanishing of Ethan Carter. Witchfire is a Souls-like RPG, but with guns. Let's start with the setting. The world of Witchfire is dark and atmospheric, where witches are real and the church is locked in a war against them. We will take on the role of someone called a Prayer, an undead witch hunter, tasked with hunting down witches and gathering an artifact that can potentially shift the balance of power in this war. Immersion is at its core of any Souls game, and Witchfire hopes to achieve that. With richly detailed environments we have seen, filled with eerie ruins, cursed forests, and haunted castles, the aesthetic looks heavily inspired by Gothic and medieval European themes, blending them with supernatural horror and a dystopian atmosphere. Up next is gameplay structure. At its core, Witchfire is a first-person shooter, but with heavy RPG customization elements layered into the experience. The primary focus is combat, using firearms. But players also have access to spells, magical items, and various tools that expand their tactical options in combat. But I think we already know why we will play this one. I mean, it's a Souls-like with guns. As expected, there's no easy or hard mode. Instead, Witchfire offers one uniform challenge level for all players. This design choice ties into the game's roguelite elements, even if the developers have moved away from that label. Meaning death and learning from your mistakes are key to the experience. Witchfire offers players the freedom in how they approach combat, freedom in choosing the guns you like, whether you prefer long-range sniping, close-quarters combat, or a more spell-heavy, sorcerer-like build. The game supports various playstyles. If you want a flexible and adaptive combat system where your success depends on both your skill and strategic thinking, the RPG mechanics will allow you to customize your loadout and character abilities, encouraging experimentation. The RPG elements. Character builds. Players can develop their prayer in different directions, focusing on certain stats and abilities that affect gameplay. For instance, one might specialize in offensive magic, while another might focus on defense or enhancing the power of your firearm. The potential of replayability seems to be there if they implement the variety properly, as each player can approach challenges in unique ways depending on their character's strengths. Loot and gear. This one needs no explanation. As you progress, you will collect weapons, magical items, and spells that can be mixed and matched to create powerful combinations. The game's arsenal includes both conventional firearms and more fantastic ones, enchanted weapons, each with their unique stats and effects. Progression. While Witchfire has some roguelite elements, like losing resources upon death, it also emphasizes steady progression. Players unlock new areas, gear, and spells over time, ensuring a sense of advancement despite the game's difficulty. Let's look at the Souls-like elements that they have taken inspirations from. I think it's worth mentioning that the developers have distanced themselves from directly labeling Witchfire as a Souls-like, even though I've mentioned it about 30 times so far. But it's quite evident when you look at the gameplay that certain elements are clearly there. Permadeath mechanics. When players die, they lose the Witchfire resource they've gathered during their progression. However, they can recover it on their next run if they can reach the point where they died. Enemy respawns. They respawn after a player's death or return to their hideout, though not during an expedition. Mechanics like timed reloading, where actions like running or dodging can cancel the reload, are clearly inspired by Souls games. The need to balance timing and positioning during combat, much like in any other Souls-like game that's present here. Last but not least, the high difficulty with strategic elements. The difficulty does not just come from tough enemies, but from how greed and poor decision-making are punished. For instance, rushing in when a boss has low HP and mistiming can lead to a quick defeat like any Souls game. There are clear inspirations, which is not a bad thing in my opinion, so I don't see the need to distance themselves from the genre. Next, the part that excites me the most about the game is the lore and the storytelling. The lore of Witchfire is told in a similar fashion akin to the Souls games. Players uncover bits of information about the world, its history, and its characters as they progress. It does promise a dramatic story that is slowly revealed, and the current narrative structure is embedded with the game's world building and character interactions. Now the important question, the release date. You might be excited or disappointed to know that currently Witchfire is in early access. According to the devs, they opted for this approach to gather players' feedback early in development and make adjustments based on community suggestions. The game's early access period is expected to last until late 2025, with a roadmap outlining major content updates. I do think a well-planned early access is a good thing for titles like this, but we will have to see. You never know these days. Currently, the game features 3 regions out of a planned 6, each offering expansive, open-level areas akin to districts in larger open-world games. The developers have stated that each of the 2 largest regions in the game surpasses the entire playable area of their previous title, The Vanishing of Ethan Carter. Over time, more regions, bosses, weapons, spells, and story elements will be added, I'm sure, to Witchfire, with player feedback continuing to shape its evolution. It has received some applause for its technical polish and extensive customization options, even in early access. But you know how it is with things like this. Decide yourself, is what I will say. It features widescreen support, controller sensitivity adjustments, customizable controls, crosshair placement, field of view sliders, and graphics presets to ensure players can tailor their experience to their preferences. The game is also optimized for Steam Deck, which is immediately a buy for me because I love my Steam Deck. Among planned features include a new stats system to give players more control over their character's build, alchemy, a revamped potion crafting system will allow players to create meaningful and powerful concoctions, melee combat, the developers are working on adding melee combat, another frequently requested feature from players, although I don't see the need for it. Why do you want to go close when you can just shoot from a distance? Quests, both repeatable and one-time quests, are planned to enhance gameplay variety. Story elements, the full narrative arc will only be completed near the final release, with more lore and story-driven content being gradually introduced. Currently, Witchfire is a strictly single-player game, but the developers have hinted that co-op could be explored in the future, although it's not guaranteed. The game's design emphasizes slow, methodical combat, which may be difficult to preserve in a co-op setting. But the team is considering the possibility. Overall, Witchfire does have the potential to be a fan favorite with a unique twist to the genre. Personally, I am a fairly hardcore Souls fan. I absolutely love all the games, and this sounds kind of like a first-person shooter version of Bloodborne, which is probably my favorite Souls game. This was my breakdown of Witchfire. What do you think about the title? I do think our community will look forward to this game, but do let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like the video as it helps a lot, subscribe to the channel, and check out the member perks if you enjoy what I do. I will see you soon.